Well, the drivers and teams in the Ginetta Junior Championship have had a good few hours to reflect upon an exciting first race of the day, second race of the weekend earlier on this morning, and the good British weather has had a good opportunity to completely change its mind about what it's going to do this morning. It was grey, it was overcast, it was a wet track. Now, blue-ish skies, a few scattered clouds, temperatures getting into the 20s, and a bone-dry racetrack greets the drivers for their final 20-minute race of the weekend. And a particularly important one because we've been monitoring this championship situation as it ebbs and it flows over the course of the season, even over the course of this weekend. It's had a couple of twists and turns, but now we head into the final race this weekend before we head to Brands Hatch. This is how the championship standings look, and this is including the drop score. So Ethan Jeff Hall leading the way. He is 56 points clear now of Charlie Hart, second place in the championship. Splitting now the R Racing drivers. Chase Fernandez, of course, after his dramas yesterday, only third in the points, 17 points further back. Henry Jocelyn, meanwhile, 74 points off the top of the championship table, and Marcus Sater, 99 points back. I think I'm right in saying they are now the only four drivers who mathematically can still win the championship. Isaac Phelps, Archie Clark, Ruben Dan, James Shotton, and Tom Ingram Hill completing the top 10 in the points. But as we've seen already, it's been a bit of a topsy-turvy weekend. Plenty of big talking points, really. Yesterday's race won by Colin Cronin. Earlier on today, though, Chase Fernandez bounced back quite nicely from a non-finish yesterday after that clash with his teammate Ethan Jeff Hall at the chicane, and he will be starting once again from pole position. He started from pole in all three races this weekend and will really be hopeful now that he can net another race victory. The grid for this third race based upon the results from race number 2 earlier on, and so Chase Fernandez will have alongside him Henry Jocelyn, who pushed him hard in that race earlier on today, and looked for a time like he might be able to beat Chase Fernandez to the victory, but Chase was able in the end to come out on top. Henry Jocelyn second, and Ethan Jeff Hall, really the star of the show earlier on today, started 12th on the grid for that second race, but came through to finish in third place, and that not only netted him a lot of points, only a handful fewer in the end than his teammate and championship rival Chase Fernandez, but it also puts him up there now on the second row of the grid for this one, so he's got a really good chance now of going for a race victory. On the other hand, Charlie Hart having a bit of a disappointing weekend so far, really. Charlie was 6th yesterday. He was 8th earlier on this morning, so that's where he will start, the man who is second in the championship standings. The grid then as follows: Chase Fernandez and Henry Jocelyn, R Racing and Prep Tech UK on the front row of the grid. Championship leader Ethan Jeff Hall will be starting third, with Isaac Phelps for Elite Motorsport alongside him on row 2. Third row then for yesterday's winner, Colin Cronin, Archie Clark alongside him, 6th on the grid, and row number 4 shared by Marcus Sater, who won on the road in race 1, and Charlie Hart, who really needs to make something happen now to take this championship fight to the decider at Brands Hatch. Ruben Dan and Jude Peters complete the top 10 on the grid. Row 6 then for Felix Livesey and Torrin Byrne. Haven't seen a lot of Torrin this weekend. Hopefully Torrin will be up there fighting for a top 10. Tom Ingram Hill we did see good things from earlier in the weekend, but hasn't yet got the results to show for it. Ethan Carney alongside him, the American, starting on row 7. James Ellis was in the wars earlier on today. He will start on row 8 alongside Jack Robinson. Holly Mile and Harry Moss on the 9th row. At the back of the grid, Alfie Slater will bring up the rear for R Racing. Well, I said there, Charlie Hart needs to make something happen to take the fight to Brands Hatch. I think I am right in saying that it will go to Brands Hatch, I think, regardless pretty much of what happens here, because even if Charlie Hart and Chase Fernandez were to not finish and Ethan Jeff Hall were to claim the win, the drop score situation, I think, would at least mathematically keep Charlie and Chase in contention. But realistically, Charlie and Chase need to beat Ethan Jeff Hall, and they need to beat him by a reasonable amount, really, in this race, because it is a big old gap between Ethan and Chase in third position, realistically. So, yeah, this is... although Chase, of course, on the drop scores actually moves ahead of Charlie, doesn't he? So Charlie Hart is second on those drops, on the outright points, but not necessarily... In fact, the points table I've got in front of me provided by TSL Timing, I'm not convinced is exactly what we saw on that graphic earlier on. I've got Ethan Jeff Hall leading on 522 points. I've got Chase Fernandez on 483 points, 39 points back, and Charlie Hart actually third on 466. According to the TSL Timing website, but we'll await official confirmation from Ginetta. This time of year, it's always nice to have some official points scoring being fed back to us. But either way, Ethan Jeff Hall is the one in command. He starts from third. He's the grey car with the pink highlights. The grey with the gold highlights is Chase Fernandez. And another grey car, but not run by our racing. That's Charlie Hart, the one that starts from further back on the grid, 8th on the grid for young Charlie. Right then, for the final time this weekend, it's time for the Ginetta Junior Championship drivers to go racing. The red lights will go on very shortly, and then we'll be racing for 20 minutes around the Donington Park Grand Prix circuit. Lights out, off they go. Good start made by both of the front row starters, I would say. These cars not the most powerful, of course, so not a huge amount of wheel spin to deal with. Jocelyn, though, does seem to have got through the gears a bit better than Chase Fernandez, and is challenging on the outside line in towards Redgate Corner. Does he try and go right round the outside? Answer, no. Chops back in line, settles in behind Fernandez and heads down the hill in second position. Couple running wide further back, but they're all pointing in the right direction then, and they head now down towards the Craner Curves for the first time. We ride on board here with the 26 car. That's Henry Jocelyn, who's slots into, as I said, second position behind Fernandez. So Fernandez, Jocelyn, Ethan Jeff Hall, the order. Jocelyn's in the gravel down at the old hairpin though, bounces back onto the road, but loses traction, loses momentum, and loses his podium place, because through will go both Ethan Jeff Hall and Isaac Phelps, and down to fourth will go Jocelyn. So maybe a little bit of cold tyre syndrome creeping in there. And Henry just couldn't quite get the car turned in at the bottom of the hill, and actually did well to only lose a couple of positions. Marcus Sater's in the dirt now, heading through McLeod. He's not the only one. Jude Peters and a couple of others further back as well running wide. Robinson, I think, was the other one, number 45. So a little bit of a messy run through the first few corners, and someone else is off now. Is that Phelps? No, it's not. It's Colin Cronin. Colin Cronin off on in the 75 Fox Motorsport car. Dipping wheels onto the grass through coppice, that just sort of sucks you out into the gravel trap, and very difficult to rejoin at any great speed there, so he'll be towards the back of the field. That is last as they head down towards the Fogarty S's for the first time. So a dramatic opening lap then. I'm sure that won't be the last of the drama, but it's once again an R-Racing 1-2. Fernandez versus Ethan Jeff Hall out in front. We'll remember how that ended yesterday. Bit of shuffling going on further back in the order. Jude Peters there at the inside of the 31 of Felix Livesey, and Tom Ingram Hill getting sort of elbowed out wide by somebody there at the bottom of the hill. Might have been James Ellis, that, in the number 4. Yes, I think it was. And they're all sort of stacking together. This has got disaster written all over it, hasn't it? 3 abreast into the Goddard's hairpin. Someone locking up at the back of the group. Miraculously, they all get through the corner. And I didn't really see too much contact there either. That was good, clean racing. And they head out of Goddard's turn now, still 2 by 2. But they have settled down a little from where they were going into the turn. So Fernandez leads then. Half a second his advantage over Ethan Jeff Hall in second position. Isaac Phelps third. Henry Jocelyn down to fourth after that gravelly excursion at the old hairpin. And it's Archie Clark who's moved up into 5th position ahead of Charlie Hart. So Charlie Hart 2 places gained on the opening lap. You can see he's a little bit detached from the leading group, but if they all start battling, he may well be able to close in on them a little bit further. Down through the old hairpin we go. Henry Jocelyn this time keeping the car on the circuit. Side-by-side action further back. Look, and someone's going around, and that's the 53 car, and is heading towards the barriers. Thankfully stops just short of the tyre wall, and Ethan Carney lucky to avoid any major damage there. Couldn't quite see whether that was self-inflicted or whether he had some assistance, but either way he's off the road. Hopefully we'll be able to select first gear and get going. Meanwhile, Torrin Byrne on the outside there gets overtaken by the number 45 of Jack Robinson, and then immediately retaliates back up the inside into Coppice Corner to try and regain the position. This, I believe, is 16th position, 15th position maybe now that they're fighting over after we had that car off down at the old hairpin. Charlie Hart, meanwhile, defending here from Marcus Sater. So rather than going forwards, Charlie is busy defending and trying to prevent a drop down the order. He's slower off the chicane, chops aggressively across the nose of Marcus Sater. He is not going to let Marcus have the inside line for the Melbourne hairpin. Sater commits to the outside instead. Charlie comes back over. There's a little bit of a touch. Charlie Hart trying to make that the widest Ginetta G40 in existence and couldn't do it. So Marcus Sater goes through anyway. And Sater then picks up 6th spot, loses, they both lose a bit of time as a result of that squabbling. Meanwhile, Ethan Jeff Hall sliding through the hairpin at Goddard's. These might not be the most powerful of cars, but once you unsettle the rear of them, you can get a little bit of a slide on. And Ethan Jeff Hall pushing on now. Yesterday, at about this point in the race, I said, do you know what? Fernandez and Ethan Jeff Hall, they've worked well together all year. They tend to get out in front, work together, pull away from the field, and then battle at the end of the race. And I think half a lap after I said that, they clashed at the chicane and they were both pointing the wrong way. So I'm not going to make any bold predictions about teamwork here, but right now they are getting away, aren't they, from the Elite Motorsport pair behind of Isaac Phelps and Archie Clark. Clark then up into 4th place, so Archie's got himself ahead of Henry Jocelyn now, who's fading, and did fade in the sort of mixed but mainly dry conditions yesterday afternoon, didn't he? So in the wet he was quick this morning. In the dry, though, Henry just lacking something, isn't he, that he would have needed to challenge for a good result. Archie Clark's having a go at his teammate here, actually up the inside of Isaac Phelps, and goes through cleanly up at McLean's corner. Really good move, that. I wonder whether Isaac will now decide to just tag onto the back of Archie's car. If Archie has some good pace in this race, that might be mutually beneficial, mightn't it, if they work together to try and stop those R Racing boys escaping up the road. So it's R Racing 1-2, it's Elite Motorsport 3-4, then the Prep Tech UK car of Henry Jocelyn in 5th position. Around goes Holly Mile, and that's on the exit of McLean's corner. I think that the 23 car's gone for a spin. Holly again selects first gear, will continue. Probably still ahead of Ethan Carney, I think, after Ethan's spin down at the old hairpin a lap ago. Here we go then. It's back on board, I think, here with Henry Jocelyn, so that's the elite pair in front. In the distance, though, you can see the R Racing boys starting to scrap, are they? That looks like Ethan Jeff Hall trying to pull up alongside Chase Fernandez. Couldn't quite get the run off the corner, but he did seem to be on the attack there, rather than just following in the wheel tracks of his teammate. Chase Fernandez, who joined the R Racing team partway through the season, started the year with E3 Sport, and then moved over to R Racing. That did him the world of good, really, because he started winning races and finishing on the podium with some regularity. But it did put him in the same camp as Ethan Jeff Hall, the championship leader, as he has been for much of the season. Their battling has not lessened in intensity, has it, at any point? Good run out of Redgate there for Ethan Jeff Hall. You'll see here as he heads down the hill, the slipstream starts to bring them ever closer together. Once you get up into about 4th gear, you're going fast enough that the slipstream does start to have an effect. That closes him right onto the rear bumper of his teammate. Decides not to go for a move into the old hairpin, sliding the cars through, careful of track limits on the exit, never mind. Chase Fernandez did gain a little bit from that running wide, didn't he? Just pulled half a length, but by the time they get to the top of the hill, the slipstream brings them back together again. It's one of the great things about Ginetta Junior Racing, always has been, these cars, because they're not very powerful and also not very aerodynamic. The slipstream effect has a big bearing on the nature of the racing, especially around a high-speed circuit such as Donington. Did spot there that Marcus Sater has got himself up ahead of Henry Jocelyn, so Jocelyn down another position. Harry Moss there is wide. Now, it said initially stop-go penalties. They've now changed to black and white warning flags, but the timing screen did briefly say a stop-go penalty for cars 26, 50 and 67. Well, 26 is Henry Jocelyn, 50 is Charlie Hart, and 67 is Marcus Sater. But that message very quickly disappeared and was now then changed to a black and white warning flag, and that's Tom Ingram Hill off the road and shedding rear bodywork as he does so down at the Fogarty S's. So I think that might have been an error on the timing screen. It's a black and white warning flag for track limits for those drivers. Here is one of them, two of them. Henry Jocelyn getting elbowed out wide by Charlie Hart, and Ruben Dan coming through as well. So Charlie Hart on the move, Henry Jocelyn also on the move, but moving the wrong direction really, dropping down the order. Might he be able to at least limit the damage to one place lost? Yes, he can. Slots across in front of Ruben Dan. Leaders together then as they head down towards Redgate Corner, and Ethan Jeff Hall, with that slipstream from his teammate, has set the new fastest lap of the race, a 156.774, tenth of a second quicker than the race leader, but crucially 3/10 quicker than anything Archie Clark can do behind. This, meanwhile, was Tom Ingram Hill going rally crossing at the Fogarty S's. The car digs into the gravel. The rear bodywork, as soon as it catches that gravel, the speed they're going, it's always likely to dislodge, which it did. And Tom Ingram Hill, unfortunately, drops down the order. Now, Fernandez once again wide out of the old hairpin. That is definitely a spot where they'll be monitoring these track limits. He needs to be careful doing that. Gets a bump draft there. Look from Ethan Jeff Hall, pushing him up the hill. Something, again, that we do see quite a lot of in this style of racing on this kind of track. And a neater, tidier line maybe there from Ethan Jeff Hall. Now, is he content to sit there and wait until later in the race to attack, or will he want to overtake? It looks as though he's got a good run through Coppice Corner. And again, the slipstream down the back straight might give him an opportunity. This is where he tried yesterday and failed to get the lead away from his teammate, Chase Fernandez. I don't think he's close enough to pull out of the slipstream this time, though, so stays where he is. Fernandez leads still then. Ethan Jeff Hall second, Clark getting away from Phelps in third. And this, the fight for sixth position. Charlie Hart with Henry Jocelyn right behind him. Charlie Hart then is looking like he's under pressure. So too is Chase Fernandez. Ethan Jeff Hall's got the inside line into the Melbourne hairpin, and Ethan Jeff Hall is back to the lead of the race and stops the car nicely on the apex as well to prevent that possible switchback manoeuvre from Chase Fernandez, who must have been a little bit slow off the chicane. That gave Ethan Jeff Hall the run down the hill, and now it is car 25 back out in front. But look, even that tiny bit of side-by-side racing, look at the time it lost them to Archie Clark in third position. That gap at the start of the lap was 1.6 seconds, second to third. It is now at the end of the lap 0.9, so 7/10 lost by the leading two. Just through that one overtake, and you have to imagine that Fernandez will not be content to settle for second, so there may be more side-by-side racing between the two of them to come. Could play beautifully into the hands of Archie Clark in third. Charlie Hart, meanwhile, at the front of this group further back, but Henry Jocelyn at the back of it. He's been overtaken by both Ruben Dan and Felix Livesey. Right on board with Jocelyn, and see if we can figure out exactly where this pace has gone, because we've seen Henry go well in the past, and last time we raced here at Donington Park, remember, he picked up 2 race wins, so he likes this place. He tends to go well here, but in the drive, for whatever reason this weekend, the pace just hasn't quite been there for him. Chase Fernandez could not be any closer to Ethan Jeff Hall. If that was the contact, I'm not sure, but Ethan is sideways at McLean's, and Chase Fernandez is back up the inside. So Chase Fernandez for the lead here. This is exactly the kind of side-by-side racing that will play into the hands of Archie Clark, and they do luckily sort it out pretty quickly. Chase Fernandez back through. Any sign of gesticulation here from Ethan Jeff Hall? Nothing yet. He seems pretty calm and relaxed, so maybe that wasn't an assistance from his teammate. Maybe it was just a little bit of a loss of grip. Again, he chooses to give the bumper to Fernandez rather than attacking into the chicane. Settles in behind Chase then. So Fernandez back to the lead then. But look, it is very much a 3-horse race now. Archie Clark has detached himself from his teammate Isaac Phelps behind and is almost now on the tail of these two. Fernandez once again defending into the Melbourne hairpin. Ethan Jeff Hall to the outside, and Archie Clark sees a chance to fill the gap on the inside line. Almost got there, couldn't quite do it, but look at the run Ethan Jeff Hall has off the corner. That was perfect. Went in wide, came out tight, carried extra momentum up the hill. The trouble is, he's back on the outside line now into Goddard's corner, has his nose ahead, and he's supremely late on the brakes. Can he make the corner? Not really, but well enough, I think, to get the move done. They're still side by side, but Ethan Jeff Hall has got the lead by the time they get to the line. That was fabulous racing, and Ethan Jeff Hall supremely confident under braking to go around the outside of his teammate and get the lead of the race back. Fernandez, though, sells the dummy, jinks back to the inside at Redgate corner, and will try to get the position back again immediately, because what he doesn't want is to end up having to defend from Archie Clark, and he is now waving furiously at Ethan Jeff Hall to say, what are we doing? We could be working together and getting away from everybody else, and instead we've invited Archie Clark to the party. They're side by side down the hill. Fernandez on the inside. Clark is likely to try and go through with him, and he does. Ethan Jeff Hall down to third position then, and Chase Fernandez back to the lead of the race. Clark slots into second position, and Ethan Jeff Hall suddenly finds himself, after a brilliant bit of driving at Goddard's, down on the bottom step of the podium. So, Fernandez leads, but Archie Clark in second position, winless so far in his Ginetta Junior racing career. He's had one third-place finish. That came last time out at Silverstone in the third race of the weekend, actually. And he's up there in the lead battle once again. And Archie Clark in prime position there to take advantage of that. Now, 5-second penalties being handed out to 67 Marcus Sater, 26 Henry Jocelyn, and 50 Charlie Hart. So Charlie Hart, a 5-second penalty for exceeding track limits. They're the same 3 drivers who were being warned about that a few laps ago. They haven't heeded the warning, and 5 seconds now added to their race time. There's the first of those drivers. Marcus Sater, 5th on the road. Charlie Hart is 6th on the road, and Henry Jocelyn has dropped all the way down to 9th now. We'll focus on that later, though, because for now the leaders descend upon the Melbourne hairpin with 6.5 minutes or so to go. And Chase Fernandez now has not 1, not 2, but 3 drivers to defend from, because Isaac Phelps has now closed in on this group as well. And actually, Marcus Sater, although he's got this time penalty, is at least physically on the road, not that far behind them either. So it's 5 for the lead now, really, as they come through the final corner. As it stands, Ethan Jeff Hall, we think, would be on 553 points. Chase Fernandez on 518. But now there is the realistic possibility, isn't there, that more cars could get between those two. And Chase is waving at Archie Clark to say, work with me. You're having a laugh, says Archie. He's not teammates to Chase Fernandez. He's got no loyalties to those two racing drivers. And he puts that on display immediately. Goes to the inside at Redgate, drifts out wide on the exit though, and Chase Fernandez gets the switch back again, pulls alongside. Is the door going to be closed in the face of Ethan Jeff Hall? Yes, it is. Archie Clark only just managed to fill that gap, but it was so important that he did, otherwise he'd have been hung out to dry when we got down here to the bottom of the hill at the old hairpin. As it is, he's at least able to take stock of the situation, settle back into second place. Out of the old hairpin they go. Again, the slipstream now gathers them all together. Is anybody going to be close enough to make a move into McLean's? Not really, I don't think. But Chase Fernandez, the sitting duck, really, isn't he? Out in front. Oh, Ethan Jeff Hall on the inside from a long way back. Sends it into McLean's corner, shuffles Archie Clark out wide, and Isaac Phelps almost finds a gap on the inside of the pair of them. Has to back out a bit, but Ethan Jeff Hall is not here to settle for points. He wants to go for the race win. He's back into second place, but that has handed a big advantage now to Chase Fernandez. Onto the back straight they go. It is Ethan Jeff Hall back to second position. Archie Clark is shoving him down the back straight, but Ethan will not move from that white line on the inside. He wants to defend into the chicane, and he wants to come out of the chicane still in second position, which I think he probably will, because Archie Clark just sort of gets hung out on the outside line there. Marcus Sater has found a way past Isaac Phelps now, but remember, Sater's got that penalty. Clark is slow. Isaac Phelps up the inside now of his Elite Motorsport teammate, I should say. And on that inside line, I think he might be able to go through. He's on the power, he's urging the car on corner exit. He does clear Clark, and so Archie Clark, a moment or two ago, was in the lead. Now suddenly finds himself, well, fourth, maybe fifth, with Marcus Sater alongside him. Marcus on the outside line may or may not know about this 5-second penalty that he's been given, but he's certainly racing as if he doesn't, or doesn't care, maybe, that he's got this penalty. There is confirmation of the 5 seconds for 67 Sater, 26 Jocelyn, and 50 Charlie Hart. The latter two of those three drivers are in that second pack you can see at the top of the screen. Isaac Phelps then defends the inside into Redgate corner. What a move that was, though, from Ethan Jeff Hall. I mean, I said he put in the drive of a champion in race number 2. That was a very risky move for a championship leader at this stage of the season to be taking. It could very easily have ended in contact and a penalty or damage or both. It was Sater now, jinking to the inside of Archie Clark into the old hairpin, but he was a touch too far back to really make that work. By the end of the lap, then, it was 1.8 seconds the lead, Fernandez to Jeff Hall. We need to watch that. In Sector 1, it comes down by 1/10.5. Sector 2, of course, doesn't end until we get halfway down the exhibition straight, so we'll get that time in a few moments. Charlie Hart, meanwhile, fending off Ruben Dan, but Ruben will inherit that 6th position with this penalty. He'll probably inherit 5th as well, because Sater's not 5 seconds in front, is he? He is, though, back ahead of Archie Clark now on the road. So Archie will be a bit frustrated about this. He was in a position to maybe challenge for a win only a couple of laps ago. Now suddenly finds himself battling with a driver he really doesn't need to be battling with, because that driver has a penalty. They're banging doors into the chicane. Archie Clark thinking, just leave me alone, this isn't really your race. But Marcus, as I said, doesn't really care. Slides through, clips the tyre stack, and moves back up into that 4th position on the road. Now that graphic, and indeed the message on the timing screen, is saying a 5-second stop-go penalty for more drivers now. Cars 11, 67 and 45. 11 is Ruben Dam, 67 is Marcus Sater, and 45 is Jack Robinson further down the order, but that says stop-go penalty and has now vanished from the screen again. So it would be unusual for that to be a stop-go, normally just time added on, but wait and see if anyone does dive for the pit lane. Right, Fernandez to Ethan Jeff Hall. 1.8 it was, 1.5 it is, because Ethan Jeff Hall's done the fastest lap. A 156.755, about 4 tenths quicker than the race leader. And he's still got 2 more laps to go. He'll need a bit more than that to get there, but if he does get there, I think it's fairly clear he will have a go for the race win, regardless of the point situation. Right now, though, he's doing enough to go to Brands Hatch with, by the looks of it, a pretty sizable championship advantage. Fernandez would require a little bit of misfortune to befall Ethan Jeff Hall at the finale. This group maybe just calming down ever so slightly now. There's Archie Clark, losing touch now with Marcus Sater slightly, although he will pick up that slipstream heading up the hill towards McLean's. The lead gap down by another 2 tenths in Sector 1. So Ethan Jeff Hall pursuing Chase Fernandez with all he's got, but is he going to have time to get there? What you do tend to find, though, in Ginetta Junior racing, once you get within a second of the car in front, that's when you really start to notice the effect of the slipstream, and that final second can vanish almost over the course of one flat-out section of racetrack. So he's almost within that 1 second bracket now. It's almost like a DRS zone, except these cars do not need DRS to provide good overtaking and good side-by-side racing, as we have seen. It's actually a personal best in the second sector for Fernandez, fractionally slower than Ethan Jeff Hall, but only fractionally. Marcus Sater there getting very close, within a fraction of an inch or so of clobbering the tyre stack. But a avoids the contact. He, remember, sits in 4th position, but on corrected times will drop down the order, although 2 of the 3 cars behind him, Charlie Hart and Ruben Dan, have also been given 5-second penalties, so it will likely only be the blue and black car of Archie Clark that really benefits from that. Leaders then up towards Goddard's. We're going to start the final lap this time around. Archie Clark, by the way, putting in the fastest middle sector of anybody in this race so far. There is Charlie Hart. His 5-second penalty, as we've said, will be added to the end of the race as well. But the next car behind him is Ruben Dan, also with 5 seconds hanging over him. Leaders then 1.1 seconds apart, another half a second gained by Ethan Jeff Hall. Is this going to be enough for him to close in and challenge Chase Fernandez for the win? Or is it going to be a 7th victory of the year for Chase? These two are on the same number of race wins so far this season. So are we going to see Chase Fernandez hold on, or will Ethan Jeff Hall be able to get close enough to challenge? Well, in the first sector, again, he is 2/10 quicker. 5-second penalties, by the way, have now been converted to 10-second penalties for Sater, Hart and Jocelyn, the first 3 to be handed the extra time. None of this affecting the leading 2, who head through McLean's corner now. Slightly tighter, slightly neater line there for Jeff Hall. 56.638 was his lap time last time around. As I said, half a second quicker than the leader, faster than anybody else has been. If he could pick up a hint of a slipstream down this exhibition straight, he might be close enough to have a go through the final couple of corners, and they are really the best overtaking opportunities on the track. Oh, they're 3 abreast behind. Look, Archie Clark has got past Isaac Phelps. Clark is back in a podium place now. He pulls across in front of Marcus Sater as well, and Archie Clark goes from 5th to 3rd. What on earth happened there? Up at McLean's and Coppice corner. Sater slots in between the Elite Motorsport drivers, but will drop behind Isaac Phelps after the penalty. Clark slow off the corner, and Marcus Sater's going to try and get to the inside of him. The leaders are not doing anything particularly exciting, so let's focus on this fight for 3rd. Archie Clark, can he hang on? There's contact behind him. Are they going to clatter into Archie? No, somehow they all make it into the corner. Charlie Hart and Ruben Dan closing in now as well. Isaac Phelps bouncing off the side of Marcus Sater's car, but I reckon Archie Clark might have done enough here. Just needs to not make a mistake through Goddard's, and he's going to pick up his 2nd podium finish of the year. It's an R-Racing 1-2 though, and it's a 7th win of the season for Chase Fernandez, with Ethan Jeff Hall chasing him home in 2nd place. A drag race to the line for 3rd, but it doesn't really matter. Sater's got the penalty, so Archie Clark does beat him to the line, but on corrected times is comfortably in 3rd position. Well, as comfortable as it can be in a Ginetta Junior race, with Isaac Phelps 4th, Felix Livesey gets 5th, and Alfie Slater will move into 6th position ahead of the penalised Ruben Dan in 7th spot. Torin Byrne here trying to go around the outside of Jack Robinson. And as they head off the final corner, this could be a bit of a photo finish, couldn't it? Because the momentum is with the 18 car on the outside, and I think Torin Byrne will get there first. Yeah, yes, does get there first. Although Robinson had a 5-second penalty anyway. So actually, no, I think Robinson was fractionally ahead at the line, but got a 5-second penalty, so Torin Byrne ends up 16th anyway. Well, that was a typical Ginetta Junior race, really, wasn't it? But Chase Fernandez managed to hit the front at the right time, really, because when they all started battling behind him, even though it only lasted for about half a lap or so, he was able to escape them and pull a gap over the rest of the field. So Chase Fernandez, although he was reeled in again by Ethan Jeff Hall towards the end. Ethan, by the way, did set another fastest lap of the race on that final lap, a 1:56.401. And that was half a second quicker than Chase Fernandez in front for the 2nd or 3rd lap in a row. It wasn't enough for him to overhaul Chase, and so Chase Fernandez does pick up that 7th win of the year. Takes, in the end, only 4 points, though, out of Ethan Jeff Hall's championship lead, because Ethan finished 2nd with the fastest lap point. Archie Clark back on the podium as he was in the 3rd race at Silverstone, with Isaac Phelps and Felix Livesey in 5th position. Alfie Slater was 6th. Ruben Dan, the first of the drivers, with extra time added on due to track limits penalties. He was 7th, ahead of Jude Peters, Colin Cronin after an off earlier on, and James Ellis completing the top 10. Then it was Tom Ingram-Hill, Marcus Sater, Charlie Hart, Henry Jocelyn, Harry Moss, Torin Byrne and Jack Robinson, with Ethan Carney and Holly Mile breaking up the rear. All 19 starters reaching the checkered flag. And in the championship, 5.53 plays 5.18, so that is, what, 35 points, the difference between them. That is a race wins number of points between Ethan Jeff Hall and Chase Fernandez going to Brands Hatch, and, well, nearly a full 30 points further back to Charlie Hart. So mathematically, the 3 of them still in contention, but with dropped scores coming into play, it may well be realistically a 2-horse race, with Ethan Jeff Hall very much in the pound seat. Well, a hugely exciting third race of the weekend for the Ginetta Junior Championship here at Donington Park. Saw once again Chase Fernandez start from pole position, and despite an early challenge from Henry Jocelyn, it was really the last we'd see of the number 26 car, which just slowly started to drop down the order, much as it did in yesterday's largely dry opening race of the weekend. The plummet down the order began with an off at the old hairpin on the opening lap. That dropped him off the podium places, but he luckily did not lose control, unlike Ethan Carney, who looped the 53 car a little bit further back. Ethan Jeff Hall briefly had the lead ahead of his teammate Chase Fernandez, but a moment up at McLean's corner allowed Fernandez back through. The two, though, would battle very, very hard through the middle part of the race, with Ethan Jeff Hall at one point sweeping around the outside at the final turn at Goddard's, but Chase Fernandez would not be beaten. He made a lovely late dummy switch back up the inside into Redgate corner, and Ethan Jeff Hall was forced to try and hang on around the outside. Archie Clark then joined in the fun as well and was able to move through into second place. At this point, he was the fastest car on the track and really looked like he might be able to challenge for that maiden victory in the championship, but then Ethan Jeff Hall had other ideas, came sailing up the inside of him into McLean's, got back into second position and allowed the leader to get away. Marcus Sater had a time penalty for exceeding track limits, but that did not deter him from getting involved in the battle on the final lap. But Archie Clark was able to hold on to a podium, chasing home the R Racing pair at the front, with Chase Fernandez claiming a 7th win of the year.